What's up everybody, Matt Maran here for another weekly update. There's lots of exciting news to go over here this week, but before I get into the news, I first want to mention I'll be doing my usual weekly live stream on Saturday night at 9 p.m. Eastern time, so join if you can. It's always a good time hanging out and talking cars with all of you, and this will be probably the last Saturday one before I switch back to the Sundays here after this week. But anyway, I also want to mention that the biggest news story of the week here was the Toyota 4Runner debut, which I had a full in-depth tour of it in person this week. And so check that out if you haven't already. I'll include it at the end of this video as a link. But getting into the news here this week, Chevy has teased the new Corvette ZR1 here, and the teaser just says the unthinkable is coming this summer. And so most of the info is suggesting it'll be a twin turbo version of the Z06 motor with roughly around 800 or maybe more horsepower. That is the most common thing, and then the Zora is going to be the last one coming to add on to that and put the electric motor from the E-Ray in the front and give us something around 1,000 horsepower potentially. But anyway, this ZR1 is going to be wild. I mean, because the Z06 is already so impressive, and even more power, it's just going to be crazy. So excited to see that this summer. Lamborghini has also debuted their final variant of the Huracan this week. This is the STJ. It uses the 631 horsepower version of the V10 from the STO and adds in more aggressive aero, including that bigger wing you see in the back that's new. There's also more aggressive shocks with 4-way adjustability and unique tires. They say the improvements make it over a second faster than the STO around their Nardo technical center handling track, and it only comes in either blue or gray, and only 10 of these will be made, likely costing well over $400,000. But a nice send-off there to the Huracan. I will save my drink for the Huracan for when the final one is produced. But yeah, very awesome to see the final edition here. Audi has also revealed some nice improvements to the 2025 S3 this week. We just saw the A3 not too long ago. Now we have the S3. So the 2-liter Turbo 4 now does 23 more horsepower and 15 more pound-feet of torque for totals of 328 horsepower and 310 pound-feet of torque, which lowers the 0 to 62 mile per hour time to 4.7 seconds. It comes from a retune to the engine along with tweaked transmission tuning. It also gets the torque splitter rear diff from the RS3, which is an awesome improvement for true torque vectoring, and is paired with a new Dynamic Plus drive mode that will send the maximum amount of torque to the rear to make the back end more playful. And I can't wait to try that out, because I mean, I already had so much fun in the RS3, and obviously this is less power, but if you still have that same kind of handling characteristics in the S3, it's going to make that car even better, and I already liked it. And so this should make it really, really better. Also, there's stiffer bearings in the chassis, a new progressive steering ratio, new tuning for the adaptive dampers, bigger brakes, and sportier tires. And the styling tweaks are similar to the A3 with a bigger grille, new lights, bumpers, new exhaust tips, all that. The interior also mirrors the refreshed A3 and adds in the sportier seats, stitching, steering wheel, all the usual stuff. There's no pricing or release date for the US here yet, but it should come fairly soon, and so great to see that. Acura has also teased their new entry-level crossover here and revealed that it'll be called the ADX, and it'll arrive in early 2025, they're saying, which sounds like it could end up showing up at the newly January Detroit Auto Show that's making a return next year. That would be my bet for that. They say it'll be turbocharged, and the Assistant Vice President of Acura National Sales says the 2025 Acura ADX will add a 4th SUV to our lineup and add a new gateway model ready to build on the incredible success of Integra, helping make Acura a destination brand for a new generation of buyers. With the first ever ADX and all-electric ZDX, the Acura lineup will have SUVs covered from A to Z. But I mean, it's cool that it's turbocharged. So if this is going to be an HRV-based thing, then it's going to definitely have a different motor, which will be great. And even if they just put in the motor from the Integra into an HRV-sized vehicle with, of course, all the unique Acura stuff, that would be great in my opinion, and especially if they keep the price nice and competitive, that'd be an awesome addition. So great to hear that. And some other Acura news, another really good change here for them. The MDX, it's a real refresh here for 2025, and it does get one really big and much appreciated change, and that is that on the inside it finally gets rid of the true touchpad thing and finally goes to a touchscreen display. So It's a 12.3-inch touchscreen that runs Google built-in software, but thankfully it does have wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto. And hopefully this screen moves on to the rest of the 2025 lineup as well with the TLX and the RDX. We'll have to wait and see. The center console gets redesigned as a result with more storage and a relocated volume knob as well. It's also hooked up to a Bang & Olufsen stereo in the higher trims that replaces the old but fantastic ELS stereo. So this system is even more powerful though, with the top version in the Type S having 31 speakers, including 12 in the ceiling. I think they previously had 4. I don't know where you're going to stuff 12 speakers in the ceiling, but I'm all about it. And also, it has an 8.8-inch subwoofer, and the regular MDX gets a 19-speaker version of that system. And moving on to the outside, there's new bumpers, grills, and wheels for both the regular MDX and the Type S versions, plus the taillights are a little darker now as well. The Acura Watch Safety Tech also gets some new hardware for better adaptive cruise control, blind spot monitoring, and forward collision mitigation. And in the Type S, it even adds automated lane changes now when you hit the turn signal, and also automatic steering intervention and front cross traffic alert. There's also more sound deadening and rear laminated glass now, and there's no updated pricing yet, but these should be coming pretty soon here, and a really good improvement at the MDX. I'm hoping to get one of these here this summer to review, so stay tuned for that, but yeah, really great improvements there. And Buick has another debut this week after just giving us the refreshed Envision last week. This week we have the 2025 Enclave, which also gets a new front end like the ones we see on the other Buicks. And with this debut, the whole Buick lineup has now been switched over. But this one is more than that, with the whole vehicle being new and now on the same new platform as the new Chevy Traverse and GMC Acadia. Buick says it's slightly larger, but they didn't share any specifics. But inside it gets the impressive 30-inch screen for the gauges and the infotainment that thankfully does have wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto. It still retains physical climate controls as well, thankfully, and adds in a floating center console below it that provides more storage space above and below, thanks to the gear shifter now being moved to the steering column, which is a great choice there. It gets impressive standard equipment as well, including a 12-speaker Bose stereo as standard, ambient lighting, heated seats, wireless charging pad. The top Avenir goes to 16 speakers and adds ventilated massaging seats, heated rear seats, a head-up display, and a panoramic roof. As far as the powertrain, it gets the new 2.5-liter Turbo 4, and it does the same power as the Acadia with 328 horsepower and 326 pound-feet of torque, which is slightly more than the Chevy, and runs through an 8-speed auto to either front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive, which is great. They still offer both. It can tow 5,000 pounds, and the Avenir version even gets adaptive dampers. It's also the first Buick to get Super Cruise as an option, and the standard safety tech has also been improved with blind spot monitoring with steer assist and lane keep assist as standard now, in addition to all the other usual stuff. It'll begin arriving at dealers this summer, but there's no pricing for those yet. Also, Genesis has announced some changes here for their lineup for 2024, and there's a bunch of really minute stuff that I'm not going to cover here, but there are some bigger changes I do want to briefly mention. So first, the Genesis G80 loses its rear-wheel drive option here for 2024 for some reason. Now, it only comes with all-wheel drive, and that raises the starting price by $4,400 as a result, which I don't, again, rising car prices everywhere. Why would you get rid of the rear-wheel drive version? It's like everyone forgets that there are parts of the country that do not need all-wheel drive ever. And, so why they are having all-wheel drive here is a forced thing on so many cars these days. Just really boggles my mind. But anyway, on the flip side, the GV60 adds a single-motor rear-wheel drive version. It previously was only all-wheel drive, so that gets a rear-wheel drive version now at the bottom of his lineup, and that runs a 77 kilowatt-hour battery and does 255 horsepower. And the result is much better range than the all-wheel drive version, of course, jumping up 46 miles to 294 miles of range now for that one. And the 2024 GV60s also all get more airbags for a total of 10. I don't know if it maybe gets that center one, if that's what they're talking about or what, but anyway, it also gets seatbelt pretensioners and load limiters to hopefully help it perform better in the IIHS's new moderate overlap front test, where it's checking out rear passengers to see how they're faring, and that's been a very challenging test for vehicles that haven't had those pretensioners. So great they've added those, and all GV60s now also get highway driving assist too, so that'll be a great little improvement there for the base ones. Also, Ford has announced some improvements here to the Mach-E for the 2024 model year. A little late for 2024 here, but nevertheless, here they are. There's a bunch of them. So first, there's a new performance performance upgrade for the GT that uses a new e-motor that provides an extra 100 horsepower of torque over a regular GT for totals of 700 pound-feet of torque now in the GT. And combined with the new powertrain thermal modeling and control algorithms, they say it drops the 0 to 60 mile per hour time down to 3.3 seconds, which they point out is faster than a Tesla Model Y performance, and does the quarter mile in 11.8 seconds now at 114 miles per hour. Hopefully that more powerful rear motor actually gives it a rear-wheel drive bias now for that GT version, because that was the one thing I complained about with the GT, is it didn't feel anything like a Mustang because it was front biased with the power delivery. It felt more like a hot hatch than a Mustang. So hopefully this actually changes it and gives it more of a rear bias. That would be great. All GTs also now get all the Performance Edition stuff, so the Performance Edition goes away. All GTs are just Performance Editions now, basically, meaning you get the sportier seats, Magnaride dampers, and front Brembo brakes. That new rear e-motor, by the way, was developed in-house by Ford, and will actually be going into all Mach-E's, as it weighs less and will improve torque on all models, from 428 pound-feet of torque in the all-wheel drive versions to 500 pound-feet of torque. And in the rear-wheel drive versions, it goes from 317 pound-feet of torque up to 387 pound-feet of torque. Interestingly, horsepower drops by 2 in the rear-wheel drive versions to 264 horsepower, but goes up to 325 horsepower for the standard range all-wheel drive and 365 horsepower for the extended range all-wheel drive versions, which is a big jump there for that standard range one. I mean, that's 59 more horsepower than the current one, like the 2022 Mach-E standard range all-wheel drive we have does that, like 266 horsepower. And so now to be getting, 365 or 325, in that one, and 365 in the big battery, that's a nice improvement. For any gas-powered car, I'd be like, wow, that's a big jump in power. So it's great to see this here. Also, a 19 horsepower bump there for the extended range ones is also welcome. Range is also improved here with improvements of 20 miles in the regular Mach-E's, meaning up to 320 miles of range now. And the GT gets 10 more miles of range for 280 in that one now. And finally, charging is also faster by 20%, now doing a 10% to 80% charge in about 36 minutes, which is almost 9 minutes faster than before for the extended range ones, and it's going to be a 32-minute recharge time roughly for the standard range ones, but that's still far slower than all the best competitors. I mean, again, the Hyundai and Kia stuff for the past few years has been doing 18-minute recharges from 10 to 80%. So, 36, 32 minutes is still not great. I mean, we live with it just fine, and the handful of times we've had to fast charge, not a big deal if you plan it properly, but it's just still not competitive, when you compare it to the best stuff out there. And also, pricing continues to change on Mach-E's just to stay competitive with the Tesla Model Y, so it's kind of all over the place. But for now, the Mach-E starts at $40,000 before destination and goes up to $54,000 for the GT. Their new rally version also is going to be costing $60,000 before destination, and they're at dealers already. There's, I think, about 3,000 already listed on Auto Trader, so they're turning them out, and they're available now. Mercedes has revealed a refresh here for the 2025 EQS this week to help boost its appeal a little bit and give it a more traditional look, with not only those slats there in the grille, but also the hood ornament, which is almost like an old school throwback thing at this point, to have that hood ornament there. So they're really trying hard to be like, look, it's a traditional Mercedes now. You can also get the AMG line bumper as standard now. That's something they just put on all of them. It looks like it has a little more chrome than it used to as well. Inside, the rear seats have more foam and can recline as standard, so hopefully they'll be a little more comfortable there. But an executive interior package adds in heating and lumbar in the rear, and there's ambient lighting on the backs of the front seats even to make it a little more visually appealing, I suppose. Mechanically, it gets a 10 kilowatt hour bigger battery, now totaling 118 kilowatt hours, but there's no updated range numbers, and I'm assuming power figures are unchanged as well. They did change the regen braking software though, so hopefully it feels a little more natural now. I complained about that in my EQS SUV review. And anyway, they'll be arriving at dealers later this year, so cool to see that. Alfa Romeo has revealed the Milano, which is this new small crossover that slots beneath the Tonale. Unfortunately, it's not coming to the US, but for those in Europe, it's based on the same platform as the Jeep Avenger, which we also don't get here. For perspective, though, it's about 2 inches shorter than a Jeep Renegade, but I think this thing looks really cool. It's kind of interesting how they have the Alfa Romeo script there, kind of diagonally in the grille. But anyway, for now, they're only talking about the electric versions, but it sounds like a gas version will come eventually as well. But for now, now they're all front-wheel drive, with the base one using a 156 horsepower motor, and the Veloce model getting a 240 horsepower motor. And they both run a 54 kilowatt hour battery. And on the easier WLTP test cycle, the slower one will do 250 miles of range. So, again, great for Europeans, and those lower ranges are totally good. But that's pretty good range out of a 54 kilowatt hour battery. The Veloce also gets stiffer anti-roll bars, bigger wheels and brakes, and a Torsen limited slip diff. Inside, it has digital gauges from the Tonale and a 10.25-inch touchscreen, along with the sportier interior there that looks similar to the Tonale in some ways. And there's also a new Alfa Romeo steering wheel design there that's pretty cool. And it's available to order in Europe this summer, and there's no pricing for those yet. But just a shame. I just feel bad for the Alfa Romeo dealers that just, still don't have a lot of great product. They literally, now the only new thing they have is Tonale. And this would have been a great addition. It's 2 inches shorter than Renegade, but it still is like the same size as like a Kia Soul. It could have been like a more premium Kia Soul, but apparently they don't think it's worth doing. Another thing, big change here, is Aston Martin this week has announced that they are going to be one of the latest automakers here to delay their EV plans. Their first EV that was supposed to arrive next year now won't arrive until 2027. And this week, Aston's executive chairman, Lawrence Stroll, told Autocar that they'll continue selling combustion cars now into the 2030s because he says their customers want sounds and smells. And he says their shift to EVs will happen eventually. They say there's no doubt that is still going to happen, but that there's not enough demand currently at Aston's price point. And so that is part of why, in addition to, again, everyone wanting the sights and the sounds right now. And so instead, they say they're going to invest in making the V8 and the V12 motors plug-in hybrids, and they'll continue on with that for as long as they can. They say they'll basically sell plug-in hybrid V8s and V12s until they're banned. As someone who loves the Aston Martin V12 a lot, this one I'm happy to see them, continue it on as a plug-in hybrid. I think plug-in hybrids, make a lot of sense for the exotics because, again, relatively speaking, it's not like we're talking about a large amount of emissions for, how few miles they're driven and how few cars are out there. So it's not going to really make much of a dent anyway in the emissions. And again, if you have the plug-in hybrid thing for the city centers and all that, and you still have the best of both worlds like any other plug-in hybrid. So I think this is great to hear, but I am excited to see their first EV in 2027 as well, because they have announced previously a partnership with Lucid. So if you have like Lucid Sapphire stuff and gorgeous Aston Martin body styles, like that is going to be an awesome combo, I think, as well. But anyway, we'll be waiting a little bit longer for that, but at least we have the wonderful V8s and V12s to keep us entertained still in the meantime. And for the last news here, BMW and Rimac have announced a partnership to co-develop and co-produce innovative solutions in the field of high voltage battery technology for selected battery electric vehicles. And it includes Rimac's factory adding sophisticated automated production lines for batteries, and they want to use them to supply up to, or at least 100,000 batteries to OEMs annually by 2026. And so CEO Matej Rimac, I'm hoping I'm saying that right, I previously have mispronounced it. Anyway, he said it marks a significant milestone for Rimac technology, and it represents the largest and most ambitious project the company has undertaken to date. So, they're going to be basically BMW's battery supplier, it sounds like, if they're doing over 100,000 batteries. Now, BMW has said this isn't for the new class vehicles coming next year, even though this factory is supposed to be doing this stuff by 2026. Maybe we will see a mid-cycle change for the new class stuff to bring in this new battery tech, or maybe this is for other models, at least initially, but it's got to be volume stuff if we're talking 100,000. I think that includes BMW and other partnerships they have with other smaller companies like Pininfarina and others, but still, BMW is going to be the lion's share there, I'm pretty certain. So interesting to hear that development, and they definitely know how to do good battery packs, not like BMW doesn't, but great to hear this collaboration, and sounds good for both companies there. And lastly, I want to thank all of you that are members of the Maran Motoring Club. So we didn't have any new members that were able to join this week, but we did have a bunch of new members that were able to rejoin thanks to the very generous gifting that was done by the Truck and Car Guy and Kyle in last week's live stream. So thank you both so much for your continued generosity and for providing so many members with membership renewals and bringing some new members into the fold there in past weeks. I really appreciate the support from both of you especially. And for anyone else that would like to support the channel and become a member and get all those perks as well, including that priority answering in the live stream, there's always join buttons here on the video page, on the channel page, and a link in the description. But anyway, thank you all very much for watching. Let me know your thoughts on all this stuff in the comments below. Please leave a like and subscribe to keep these videos coming, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.